All right, let's dive into a really fascinating and honestly kind of weird economic number coming out of India. At first glance, it looks like amazing news for your wallet, but once you start to peel back the layers, you find a story of two totally different economic realities happening at the same time. Let's get into it.
So what's the magic number? It's this, 1.54%. That was India's headline retail inflation for September. Now, to put that into perspective, that is the second lowest rate ever recorded. I mean, that's a number that should have people celebrating in the streets, right? Well, as we're about to see, it's just not that simple.
So, does this mean everything's getting cheaper and we can all go on a shopping spree? Not so fast. India's inflation story right now is really a tale of two different wallets, experiencing two very different things. And to really get this paradox, we first have to understand what it is we're even measuring.
We're talking about something called the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. The easiest way to think about it is like the nation's collective shopping bill. It tracks the average price of a whole basket of stuff, from your daily groceries to your rent. So a low CPI just means the grand total at the bottom of that bill isn't going up very much.
Okay, let's start with the good news, the part you're probably feeling every time you go to the store. The single biggest reason for this rock-bottom inflation number is a massive, and I mean massive, drop in the price of everyday food.
I mean, just look at these numbers. We're not talking about a small dip here. Vegetable prices have literally plummeted by more than 21% compared to last year. And pulses? Down over 15%. These are huge decreases that seriously impact a family's budget, and they're dragging that whole inflation number way, way down. In fact, the price drops were so significant that overall food inflation, it actually went negative. Yep, you heard that right. Your food and drink bill was, on average, over 2% cheaper than it was just a year ago. And this isn't some one-time fluke. It's the fourth month in a row we've seen incredibly low food prices.
And it's not just what's on the dinner table. The good news is pretty widespread. We're talking 17 out of 23 major consumer categories saw inflation slow down. Things like fuel and electricity are up by less than 2%, and even clothes and shoes have been getting cheaper for 5 months straight.
And this isn't just my take. As Rajiv Juneja from the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry points out, this is a real, tangible win for the average household. It means your money simply goes further, and that's always a good thing.
But that's only one side of the story. Remember how I said this was a paradox? Well, now we're going to flip the coin over and look at the hidden story here. Because while your grocery bill might be shrinking, something else is pushing prices up in a big, big way. And this is where things get really weird. While that main headline inflation number is at a near record low, another really important number, called core inflation, is actually soaring to a 2-year high of 4.8%. Economists watch this one super closely because it ignores the bouncy prices of food and fuel to get a better sense of the real underlying price pressures in an economy. And right now, it's telling a totally different story.
So that's the big question, right? If the stuff we buy all the time is getting cheaper, what on earth is powerful enough to be driving that core number up so high? The answer is, well, it's pretty surprising.
The answer? Gold. The inflation rate for gold in India has hit a staggering, record-breaking 46.67%. That is a massive, massive number. It's driven by a huge spike in global prices, but the impact at home is what's single-handedly pushing that core inflation number up. And gold isn't the only culprit here. Check this out. Edible oils are up over 18%, and that's for the 11th month in a row of double-digit hikes. Even housing costs are starting to creep up, hitting 4%. So yeah, while your grocery bill is smaller, other big costs are definitely climbing.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, if gold prices are that insane, why isn't the main inflation number through the roof? Well, it's basically because gold purchases are mostly made by a smaller group of wealthier households. So its impact on the average person's shopping bill is pretty limited, at least for now. So, with these two completely conflicting signals, cheap food on one side, expensive assets on the other, what does a central bank even do with that? What move is the Reserve Bank of India going to make next?
In this chart right here, it tells you everything you need to know. The RBI's target for inflation is 4%. At 1.54%, the current rate isn't just below the target, it's not even in the same ballpark. That gives them a ton of room to maneuver. So from the RBI's point of view, the logic is pretty straightforward. Step 1, inflation is super low. Step 2, that gives them the green light to focus on boosting the economy instead of fighting high prices. The logical conclusion, which pretty much every economist agrees on, is that more interest rate cuts are coming.
And it's not just a guess. We have a solid forecast here from the analysts at ICICI Securities. They're predicting the RBI will cut its main interest rate down to 4.9% by early next year, all to get the economy moving since food prices are so low.
And get this, the trend might not even be over yet. Some economists are actually saying that October's inflation number could hit an all-time low of just 0.2%. Wow, that would just pour more fuel on the fire for the central bank to cut rates again.
And that really brings us back to the heart of this whole thing, to this fascinating paradox. On the one hand, you have lower food prices giving immediate relief to millions of people. But on the other hand, you have surging asset prices, like gold, that mostly benefit the wealthy. So it leaves us with this huge question. In an economy like this one, who's really